Multilinguals, what's your... They didn't realize I could understand their language. Story? I live in England but I come from Poland and am fluent in Polish alongside English. Couple of days ago I was ordering at a Subway when two Polish employees started talking. It went something along the lines of "This fetus wants chicken and bacon," and they laughed. On a side note, I feel like that's not that uncommon of an order. Right when it got to putting vegetables on the sub, I gave my order fully in Polish with a big smile on my face. The order cost me £4.80, but the looks on their faces were priceless. I was solo traveling in Morocco. I'm 22, female and speak Arabic enough to understand conversations, basic words and phrases, etc. I was trying on clothes at a small shop and there were two women helping me choose what to try on. They started talking about me in Arabic, saying how I would be a great wife for one of the ladies' sons. They were going on, and as I was leaving I responded in Arabic, "No thank you, but I appreciate your help," and they were stunned. Was a high school student in Toronto, but I speak Slovak, which is familiar to Czech and Polish. I was going to school on the subway in the morning and two good-looking women started to talk in Polish right next to me. I usually like to strike up conversations with fellow Central, Eastern Europeans. Unfortunately, they started talking about how one of them has had a burning pee problem. With nowhere to move on the packed subway and no headphones, it was an awkward thing for a 15-year-old to hear from two ladies. It got a little worse later when they started to talk about women problems. Now I have no issues with that convo nowadays, of course, but 15-year-old virgin me was a bit mortified. A long 45 minutes. Edit. Word. I'm a black American. My dad was military and stationed in Korea from his late teens to mid-20s. He picked up on the language, and as a child he taught me. It was like our secret language to talk around my mum with. She hated it. Anyway, I went to college with a large Asian population. While me and some friends were in a study room, a group of students came and I asked us to leave so they could use the room. In English, there was no time limit, no sign up, no nothing where they had that. Right. So I explained that we were here first, why did they want this particular room? Then they start speaking Korean and say something along the lines of, "Ugh, of course the black bitch is being difficult, they've been here for a while, they need to leave, maybe we can lie and say the professor reserved it." I respond in Korean, "Call be a bitch in English so I can punch you and everyone in this room knows why." Their faces turned bright red. They couldn't say anything, they just looked at me in shock and then left the room. Not me, but my dad, very white guy with equally white Irish last name, was born and raised in India. He speaks a variety of languages: Gujarati, Hindi, Konkani, English, Portuguese, etc. He was at an airport and sitting across from two young Indian women. One was saying to the other in Hindi, "Look at that fat old white guy over there." My dad got up, walked over to them and greeted them in Hindi, proceeding to make small talk about their flights and days. From his telling, there was a mix of shock and absolute embarrassment coming from them. He smiled and walked back to his baggage. When I was doing my exchange studies in China, native Russian, I was riding a subway in Shanghai. At one of the stops, a mother and her daughter sat beside me. The daughter was maybe 4 or 5 and she wouldn't stop looking at me. Then without turning her head she started asking her mum, "Mommy, why is Mr. so strange? Why is his hair strange?" and so on. I didn't react as if I didn't speak Chinese. And the mother patiently told her daughter, "Mr. isn't strange, he's just a foreigner. They look different. I thought it was really sweet, so I started talking to both of them in Chinese. They were very nice and I hope they're doing great now. I was in the line to renew my license at the DMV. Two Latina girls were behind me and were talking about me having pretty blue eyes in Spanish. They turned 3 shades of red when I turned around and said thank you. My dad grew up in Egypt and now travels the world for Dole, the fruit company. Once he was in Morocco at a plant who were possible suppliers and they tried to deceive him. They showed him the safety guidelines that were written in Arabic but were describing different standards in English. My dad doesn't look like a typical Middle Easterner and has a very nondescript accent, so they thought they could fleece him. After the dude was done talk, my dad says that's not what it says. And the guy says, what do you mean? My dad repeats the statement but in Arabic. The guy apparently dropped his jaw and all he could say was, you speak Arabic. Needless to say that Moroccan plant did not get the gig. Not me, but my dad. We're from South Africa. My dad speaks 5 English, Afrikaans, similar to Dutch, French, Italian, and German. He emigrated to the UK in early 1995 when a lot of other South Africans were doing the same due to embedded racism of a fledgling nation, but I digress. He was on the Underground in London when he overheard 2 guys speaking about a pretty woman on the train in Afrikaans, my dad's native tongue. According to Dad, they were being incredibly rude and using quite graphic descriptions of what they wanted to do to her. My dad decided to speak up, and told them to fuck off, and to not speak to people that way, they don't know who is listening. The 2 guys looked horror-struck and shut up immediately. The lady turned to my dad at her stop and said in fluent Afrikaans, I bet they couldn't do half those things with their tiny dicks. My dad just laughed in shock and watched her get off the train. Pretty hilarious. Edited bad grammar. Moved to Thailand and took extensive language training. Was drinking coffee in a quiet shop and the barista and the waitress started guessing my age, where I was from, why I came there 3 days in a row, lived close by. And I was thinking, cool, they think I'm cute, how flattering. And then the barista said, but he's a little fat. So when I left I told her my age and hometown. When she brought the change back I told her that yes, I'm a little fat. Well, my great-aunt told a story of how she once went into a butcher shop. When she walked in, the butcher was talking with a customer in Russian, which she spoke. The butcher saw my great-aunt walk in and told the costumer in Russian that he'd take care of this old hag, and then continue the conversation. So my great-aunt, in English, asked for pounds and pounds of cold cuts, all sliced and wrapped. When it was all ready, she told him, in Russian, to shove it up your ass, and walked out. God, I love that woman. I was on the subway in NYC a few months ago when her family sitting across from me was playing I Spy in Hebrew with their kids. The parents went around describing each person they saw on the train, so when they got to me I decided to play along. I looked up from my book, made a funny face, and covered my face with the book before the kids could find me. The parents started laughing and said to their kids, I spy someone who understands us. The parents and I shared a good laugh about it, while their kids got really excited that someone else spoke Hebrew. They never figured out who it was, but it made my commute a lot more fun. My late best friend, who was big, tall and blonde, was in Tim Hortons. He speaks fairly fluent Arabic, having spent 7 years working in Saudi Arabia. 3 Arabic men were sitting at a table, making very lewd comments about the women in the shop. My buddy turned to them and said in Arabic, you need to shut up before someone kicks your ass. You never know who's listening. They got very confused, and left soon after. Deleted. Myso is a tattoo artist who can speak Bulgarian, Turkish, English and German. One day we were queuing in the supermarket and two guys behind us were laughing and snickering. She turned around and said something to them. Afterwards she was laughing while one of the guys went bright red. Afterwards I asked her what that was about. The guys were like, "Look at her arm. Those tattoos. Disgusting. How can you tattoo a naked woman on yourself?" in Turkish. Myso turned around and said, "Thanks bro." And first the guy asked her to repeat because he didn't even register that she could be speaking Turkish and assumed he misheard English. That's when she said, "For the tattoo opinion." It was funny from there. The guy apologized and said he has never felt so much shame in his life. His friend was saying, "At least buy them, Myso, and have some beers." This was in a small town outside of Dublin City, so I can understand why they didn't think there would be any Turkish speakers around. I've said this before. It happened a while ago. I went to a psychiatric emergency ward once and asked for help and if they were comfortable to speak English. I understand Danish but have a hard time making myself understandable in it and didn't really feel like an idiot at a crucial time of my life. I stayed there for 4 days without anyone realizing I knew what they were saying about me right in front of me. 2 of the nurses thought I was cute. One doctor thought I was lying all the time. A patient thought I was a spy for the staff. A lot happened in those 4 days that made my stay way more enjoyable than it should have been. I've posted this before but I'll post it again. My husband is the bilingual one, not me. He's from Colombia so he speaks Spanish fluently, but grew up in the US and has been here most of his life. He also has a really fair complexion. Most people think he's just Caucasian. Anyway, we were in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico looking for a place to eat. We get to a restaurant and he asks in English how much it would cost for all-you-can-eat tacos. The guy at the door said it's $15. His friend next to him said to the guy in Spanish, "I thought it's $12. And the first guy responded, "Yeah, but they don't know that." My husband of course understood everything. He told him in Spanish that they're lying rip-offs and we'd be going somewhere else. The guy's expression was priceless. Deleted. I'm an extremely white American man. I was stationed in Korea, and a buddy and I went into a store that was slightly off the beaten path. My buddy was in a different section of the store and found something he liked. He asked the shopkeep how much it was. The shopkeep said, in Korean, "Well, you're an American, so $65. Translation and currency exchange provided freeze of reference. I looked over and saw a sign on the wall that said the exact item he wanted was $40. I approached the shopkeep and asked him, in Korean, how much it cost, to which he replied $40. So I responded, in Korean, "Why are you charging him $65? He got rather embarrassed and apologetic, offered to sell the item for $35, and gave us each a soft drink for free. I lived in Riga for a short while and went out almost every Friday to meet girls. Riga has a lot of visitors from UK and I've spent a chunk of my time in US, so I generally speak English in the center. I feel more comfortable using it. However, I also speak Russian perfectly well. So I'm drinking a beer in a bar and all of a sudden some cute Russian girl comes up to me and starts speaking English to me. She invited me for a beer with her and her friend. I didn't really have anything else going for me that night, so I agreed. What followed is an hour of them trying to make me buy them a Dom Perignon bottle and some really dirty talking about what one of them would do to me if I agreed. They also talked to the bartender, who knows me fairly well, how they're gonna rip me off big time and that I'm a foreign idiot. I ended up buying them 4 beers total out of decency. It was a lot of fun for a while, I'll give them that. Eventually I got really tired of it all, plus my friend hit me up, so I just switched to Russian, thanked him for a nice evening and left. Their faces were red from embarrassment and anger. Oh well, don't scam people. Edit. Thank you for the kind gold and silver strangers smiley face.